Today's scripture reading will be taken from Luke 21:7 through 19. Luke 21:7 through 19. So they asked him, saying, Teacher, but when will these things be? And what sign will there be when these things are about to take place? And he said, Take heed that you not be deceived, for many will come in my name, saying, I am he, and the time has drawn near. Therefore do not go after them. But when you hear of wars and commotions, do not be terrified, for these things must come to pass first. But the end will not come immediately. Then he said to them, Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be great earthquakes in various places, and famines and pestilences, and there will be fearful sights and great signs from heaven. But before all these things, they will lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and prisons. You will be brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. But it will turn out for you as an occasion for testimony. Therefore, settle it in your hearts not to meditate beforehand on what you will answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom which all your adversaries will not be able to contradict you or resist. You will be betrayed even by parents and brothers, relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake, but not a hair of your head shall be lost. By your patience possesses your souls.
Good morning, everyone. Did anyone not get a handout? All right, you should have got your first answer. You didn't see it yet, but I want to appreciate Colby for his willingness to read the scripture reading, but also being proactive. I got a text from Jean, I think it was Wednesday night or something like that, and she's like, "You got the scripture reading," and just so happened, yeah, I had it done. So he is very prepared. Let's put it that way. And I like to see more people like that, and it's good to see him willing to get up there and talk and be open in front of a large crowd. I'm thankful for that today. You know, for many years, I was always focused when I came in the building. I was focused on how many people sitting here. And I got caught up on that. And I thought about it myself. I'm like, boy, it's great to see all these people here. And then I'd see just a few, and then less and less, and then all of a sudden there's more. And I haven't really given much thought about why people are attending and why they don't attend. So this lesson is kind of thought about of what the importance is of attending. And yeah, somebody mentioned that I do a lot of song titles. Yes, a lot of lessons come from song titles. And I just so happen to love this group back in the 80s. And you think about the song and how it gets caught up. And I wish it were a Sunday, because that's my fun day. I don't have to run day. And you think about that, there's a lot to be said about that in there. I don't have to run day. And that's what the title is about. Manic. Frenetically busy, showing wild, apparently deranged excitement and energy. And that's how I feel about on Sunday now. It's just chaos. It is. What we got going on today? I used to never have to have a calendar for Sunday because I knew what we was doing. We was going to go to Woody's. Remember that one? Frosty Treat, Woody's, I think, one of those. I look forward to that. Just right out here past the house. I could have really just walked there now. But I looked forward to that with my family. And as it goes on, you remember those days taking it easy on Sunday, the family day, relaxation, Sunday drive, paper ads, walks, and family dinners. How many remembers that? Just so you know, all the older people raise their hand. And I had to really think about that too, guys, because it's a sad state of affairs what's happened in this country and what's happened for us, because a lot of those things don't really take place. Now I get frustrated when I see somebody on a Sunday drive. I do. I'm trying to pass them. I gotta go. I got 6 events to go to get around the Sunday drive. And I think a lot of things has to do with how we are wired right now. Because what has happened? Well, some of the main culprits for me, and maybe this will overlap with you, which I'm sure it will, is events, greed, selfishness, and sports. If I don't have a game, I'll be at services. I've heard people mention this before. And I've probably been one myself at one stage in my life. Made that kind of comment. If I don't have a game, I'll be at services. And I've thought about that now. Why does that hit home? And why has this decision kind of became the norm? I don't really know why, but I have some thoughts on why. Matthew 5:16, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. But a lot of that has to do when I'm standing out there on the ball diamond, or I'm sitting in the bleachers, or I'm sitting at a conference, or I'm sitting at somewhere, you name it. My light's not shining. And I think about this verse, a guy at a commentary is like, you hide it. You hide it so you don't want to be noticed. You don't want to be, a lot of times when you know you're guilty, you'll hide that light. Ever had anyone say to you, he or she is going to be something or great or amazing? We got to have them. She's the best. He's the best. We got to have that person. We need them. Just let them miss this once and the cycle never ends. You believe that? If you haven't had children, get ready. And I know a lot of people in the church that have talented individuals. For some reason, I look back and, probably the 2 most athletic people in my class were both Church of Christ members. And that's not a trend that you don't see that just kind of dives down. It's very common. And it's a temptation for us to excel. And what happens is the peers and family and society pressures will affect our decision on whether or not I'm going to make that service or not. Just so you know, this all relates to Father's Day. This lesson does in the background, and you'll see it. So, what do you want out of Sunday worship service? Are you here for yourself, your family, your friends, children, parents, or are you here to basically worship God? Because I've asked myself that question. I remember sleeping in the pew when I was a kid. I do. I remember sleeping in the pew because I think those preachers must have all preached for an hour. That's not the case, but I remember preaching. And I remember that. I remember a lot of times that there was a lot of times probably that I could have had the opportunity to listen and found something worthwhile, but I wasn't where I mentally needed to be at. Because why are you here? The purpose of our worship is to glorify, honor, praise, exalt, and please our God. We honor by the Lord's Supper, right? Don't you agree? And we sing songs of praise, our acts of worship, our prayer, and all these things are effective parts. But if you're not truly convinced that, you look at Romans 12:1, it says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable God, which is our reasonable service. This is what we're supposed to do while we're here, right? We're supposed to give God our life. Is that where you stand? How in the Spirit, Matthew 22:37-38 says, Jesus said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. So as you sit here today, is your whole entire purpose in life driven to serve God? Because that probably depends on whether or not you're going to attend services later on. Sometimes we only focus maybe on the personal gratification of what we get out of there. Sam come over and he spoke to me. So I'm coming back tonight. If that makes sense. If somebody greeted me and made me feel good, then I'm coming back to services. Your heart probably ain't the right place if it's based on how you felt as you came in there. We are to edify and uplift, but if it's not because somebody doesn't speak to me, then you're probably needing to adjust things and understand that I'm here to praise God and worship God and serve him. Because as your heart, and in Matthew 15:8 says, these people draw near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And that was the first kind of comment. We circled all the way back to the first comment I made. Remember that, German, what that was? About when I came in here, I wanted to look and see how many people was in here. And a lot of times we think on that is because they're here. Well, sometimes they're here, but they're not. And that's an important part of this. So, what are some culprits of why people have trouble putting the focus on church service? Why am I working over finishing that project and miss services? Well, you're going to find out that a lot of reasons that you miss services are the things that God hates. And that being lust of the eyes, greed, intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food. Ecclesiastes 5:10 says, he who loves money will what? He'll be satisfied. No, he will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This is also what? Is vanity. Never being happy. Because you know what? Next week, next service, you got to get more stuff done. And then the week after, you got to get another thing done. When do you have enough? What kind of nest egg does God want me to have when I leave this world? You know, I work with a guy. He's retired. So I'll have to go back to the end, but he goes, you should have at least 2 or 3 million in there, Ty, in your 401k. I'm like, is this guy an investor? Does he want me to, is he going to make some money off if you know what I mean? If you talk to an investor, he wants you to just pump, because it gets a percentage off of what you got in there, don't he, Rick? Some of these guys, they make some good change off of that. This guy's like 2 to 3 million. Well, he's retired and he's over like all these countries and stuff. I said, well, evidently he kind of knew what he wanted and he got where he needed to be in life. But I feel like a lot of us might get caught up in this and that we don't truly understand when enough is enough. In Matthew 19:16-22 says, behold, a man came up to him saying, teacher, what good deed must I do to have eternal life? And he said to him, why do you ask me about what is good? There is only one who is good. If you would enter life, keep commandments. And he said unto him, which ones? And Jesus said, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, and you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness. Honor your father and mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. The young man said to him, all of these things I have kept. Now, when I think about this, Darren, do you think that's pretty good? When you guys say this guy's living a pretty good life, I think he is. Look how difficult it is for look at the things that he just went over and said he did. Half people don't even do that. And then he comes to him and says, all these things I've kept, what do I still lack? And Jesus said to him, if you would be perfect, go sell what you possess and give to the poor, and you will have your treasure in heaven. And come follow me. When the young man heard this, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. You know what I never caught in this? You know one of the most difficult things, Dad, of that he said in this, and I never really picked up on it. What kind of person was he? Well, he was an old guy, right? He had collected all this stuff all his life. He was what? A young man. That should be a key to every person in here. He was young. And look how difficult it was for him. And I think we might struggle with this ourselves because we never get content. Could you give up all you had for God or someone in need when will you reach your limit? If you debate whether or not you should attend because there's money to be made, then you probably should think about changing your life because you have the wrong focus in life. So this one hits up. This one's a difficult, for me, and I think a lot of people in here, because we do have children that are athletic and are a viable part in a lot of teams that they play in. And I've asked myself, why is this so important? And a lot of it has to do with peer pressure. It does. But also coming back when I've looked at things that even my kid has said, or maybe I've said, or a nephew has said, or a niece has said, or a friend or whatever. A lot of it came back to the pride of life. It can be seen as a temptation to disobey God and seek one's own glory and satisfaction in earthly things. Would you agree that this is one of a motivating factor for people? I think it is when it comes to sports. Have you ever asked yourself this question? Do you think my son or daughter will be left off the team because you attended church service? If you bite into this, who do you think you're truly letting down? Your child or God? Me being a coach, I can tell you right now that if I got somebody athletic, they're going on the court. And because they missed church service. And I think a lot of times, I'll tell you what, coaches, they want to win. They're going to put that kid out there. Now, they're going to try to persuade you one way or another, but at the end of the day, you set the tone, not them. And we need more people to stick up for that. They can learn to be prideful and lose opportunity for growth in the scriptures and grow farther away from God by missing services. And I've wondered about that myself, like how much stuff did my kid miss when I put him in these sports? Because now I realize sports is year round. It never ends. So I want you to think about this guy here. Think about your guy and maybe your kid as they've grown to get better and more and achieve more things, because it's in parallel of basically this guy's life and maybe as your child, as they grow to be better and more prideful. And maybe you don't know this story, but this is 2 Chronicles 26, 16 through 21. It says, but when he was strong, he grew proud to his destruction. For he was unfaithful to the Lord his God and entered the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of valor. And they withstood King Uzziah and said unto him, but as Azariah the priest went in after him with 80 priests of the Lord who were of men of valor. And they withstood King Uzziah and said unto him, it is not for you, Uzziah, to burn incense to the Lord, but for the priests, the sons of Aaron, who are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for you have done wrong, and it will bring you no honor from the Lord God. Then Uzziah was angry. He had a censer in his hand to burn incense, and when he became angry with the priest, leprosy broke out on his forehead in the presence of the priest in the house of the Lord by the altar of incense. And Azariah, the chief priest, and all of the priests looked at him, and behold, he was leprous on his forehead. And they rushed out quickly, and he himself hurried to go out, because the Lord had struck him. And King Uzziah was a leper to the day of his death, and being a leper, lived in a separate house, where he was excluded from the house of the Lord. And Jotham, his son, was over the king's household, governing the people of the land. If you've never read that story, I would try to get you to maybe enlighten yourself. But this guy, he was probably one of the leading engineers of the time. He was a guy that brought up weapons, even the catapults and things like that, things that were not even known at the time. So look into that story. But what it was is he was really dominating. He was a leader and well-respected. People paid tribute to him. But it kind of grew to his head. And that wasn't enough. Even people giving me money, that wasn't enough. Now he wanted to be part of the what? He wanted to go the next part of this. He wanted to be more. And I feel like that's a temptation for kids. It's just, you know what? I did this, and now I want to get in this thing, and I want to get in this thing, and before long, they're in everything. And we don't know where they ended, because somehow they became successful in all these things, except their spiritual lives. Establishing God as a priority is one of the greatest achievements a parent can ever make in his life. Don't you agree? It truly is. When it's come all said and done, it ain't about what they've gained in this life. It's about their spiritual well-being. Look at the schedule. Make sure God is never the secondary option. So last thing here, it's my day. It's the only day I have off. How many, you can just raise your hand. How many really Sundays are only day off? You raise your hand. How many's got Saturday jam-packed? How about Friday, Monday through Friday? Got anything going on Monday through Friday? Or just lounge day? It's lounge day, isn't it, right? Everybody just sits around. Normally Sunday's your day off. Well, it's enticing then. Since it's my day off, I'm going to do what I want to do. Because here we are. What time do you get up for church service? Anybody get up at 7? Dave got up at 4. Gary, did you get up at 5? Darren's at 5. He's getting this next realm. He's over here at the 5 o'clock shadow. He's in trouble. I ain't saying that. I woke up at 5:30 yesterday morning. I thought, oh man, this is going to be a long day. And I feel like myself a lot of times is that you're just to a point where you want some time and peace to yourself. You do. But adultery is a part of that can come into it, is the worship of something besides God, whether it's a representation, symbol, or idea, the concept that we can just do a leisure activity. And what do we want to do? Because this is the only day I have off to do that. Some people only know what work. That's all they know to do. They seriously do. It's Monday through, it's 7 days a week. They just know that's all they do is work. Even when they're off, they're working. I know people like that. But what is you normally missing for? What do you find plugged in for God's spot when you have this day off? 1 John 5:21 says, little children, keep yourselves from idols. And then Colossians 3:5 says, therefore, put to death you members which are the earth, fornication, cleanness, passion, evil desire, covetousness, which is idolatry. I think that's one of your words in there, isn't it? And I've come to realize now, even though I work all the time and I do all these things for people, it's never my day. They all belong to God. It's always His day. Every day I came on this earth and I'm breathing, it's to serve Him. That's the only reason that I'm here. It's because of Him. So question yourself, should I miss for this? Am I physically able to attend other things but not church service? Where does your heart stand with God? In Galatians 2:20 says, I've been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave Himself for me. So a couple things to ponder on here. Things to consider. I found these interesting. We do live in a different age. Although the Bible has always been and it is complete, society is changing. And it is. And these are a couple things to consider, maybe even for church leaders and for members when they're thinking about where people's hearts are at and what's going on behind the scenes. Some of the things I felt like myself that I wasn't exposed to, not because we didn't have money growing up, is that a lot of these people nowadays have greater wealth. How many agree with that? You have 2 incomes coming in and people have the opportunity so they can do a lot more things on Sunday. Church was it because you really didn't have the extra funds to go out and do other things. Like I told you, we ate at Woody's and that was once a month and that was a big deal. Just so you know, there wasn't no McDonald's and Wendy's out there. And so it was a big deal to go out and eat that one day. And I looked forward to that. But greater wealth is a common thing that gives these people opportunities to miss. Focusing on kids' activities. Talked to this high university coach down here. And he was like, kids are, and this guy's the main guy. He's the Division I coach. Head coach, Division I. And he was saying people's basically just into too many things. That was his comment. And he needs kids, people coming in to keep his job going. But that was his outlook on things. Traveling more often. It's true. Even for myself, I'm serious. I could preach every single week somewhere. Every single week, there is a need for a preacher somewhere. But that doesn't mean it's that. That means we travel more often too, to different things going on. Blended families. We kind of hit this a little bit in our Bible study. What's happened in society? Is there more single homes? Is there more kids that are brought up in single parent families? So you think about that when you're dealing with these people that are a little bit limited on where they're not going to go to church or not. Some of these kids only got to go to church service 26 times a year because they have shared parenting. So a lot of you think they're all in the same, they're not in the same grouping. They have been into a difficult situation where they go 2 weeks without being able to worship. Online options. Sometimes we see this, that people are not have a lot of personal close contact. Even we have this option, but a lot of times maybe that kind of, and I honestly, I'm telling you right now, I worried about that sometimes with my child. I did. Because when they're not face to face with people and not engaged with other members, I worried of that. Is that working on their faith a little bit? The concept of guilt. It really bugged me. Like I told you, I think I had OCD, whatever the 12 disorders there was. I had all kinds of them things, Missy. I had every one of them. And it really bugged me when I missed services. I was like, I hope they don't know I'm not here, if you know what I mean. I was just trying to dodge cars and get out there, trying to get away from the building so they wouldn't know I went to church service. But as this kind of doesn't get to you as much anymore, and you lose that, and you miss more often, this guilty concept and complex, it kind of dissipates from you. Self-directed spirituality. They don't value the worship or members to help them grow. A lot of people just think they can just do it on their own. I don't need to be here. That's what Google's for. They can tell me what I need to know. Don't see the direct benefit. People always make time for the thing that they value the most, don't they? Focused on attendance instead of engagement. I mentioned that at the beginning. I was worried about people being here, but I realized that they weren't involved. They weren't really part of it. So when they missed and they weren't, it was just, I realized I'm missing out on much. They like, but not love their church family. And that means a lot to me. So, some other things I think you can think about. So maybe these will spurn you because these are things I've always heard in the past. I'm too tired. I'm too tired. I got up too late. Can't make it. We're going to cut it too close. We're going to walk in late. We're not going. Building's too hot or too cold. Not in this one. One next door, you could have used that excuse. How many remembers next door? Remember bringing the windows up on the side? You hear everything that went on outside. Everything. You want to talk about distractions? Seriously, you could have heard a cat meow. It was that distracting. Now it's just closed, resound, and we don't have those issues, do we? Church is full of hypocrites. He who is out without what? Sin, cast the first stone. Everybody's being tempted in here. We're all going to fall short. But my reason is because Jake sees me and I'm a sinner, and I think Jake's a sinner, I'm not coming. Where's my heart at? Preacher preaches too long, loud or monotone. I actually heard a person make that comment not that long ago, monotone. I've heard that lesson before, the same material in Bible study, not exciting. I easily get bored. I put enough time in already this week. And really, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, this is the answer. You know why you're not here. You fill in the blank. This just isn't for Sunday night and Wednesday night. This isn't. This lesson's not about Sunday night and Wednesday night. It's about what's going to cause me not to worship God. So, the lyrical person that I am, love music. My child arrived just the other day. He came to the world the usual way, but there were planes to catch and bills to pay. He learned to walk while I was away. And as he was talking before I knew it, and as he grew, he said, I'm going to be like you, Dad. You know I'm going to be like you. My son turned 10 just the other day. He said, thanks for the ball, Dad. Come on, let's play. Can you teach me to throw? I said, not today. I got a lot to do. He said, that's okay. And he walked away, but his smile never dimmed. He said, I'm going to be like him. Yeah, you know I'm going to be like him. Well, he came from college just the other day, so much like a man I just had to say, son, I'm proud of you. Can you sit for a while? He shook his head and he said with a smile, what I feel like, Dad, is to borrow the car keys. See you later. Can I have them, please? I've long since retired. My son's moved away. I called him up just the other day. I said, I'd like to see you if you don't mind. I'd love to, Dad, if I could find the time. You see, my new job's a hassle and the kids have the flu, but it's sure been nice talking to you, Dad. It's been sure nice talking to you. And as I hung up the phone, it occurred to me, he'd grown up just like me. My boy was just like me. And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man in the moon. When you coming home, son, I don't know when, but we'll get together then, Dad. We're going to have a good time then. Very familiar song, isn't it? But when I thought about Father's Day and what it means, as a dad, what kind of example was I to my kid? Because the father is supposed to be what? They're supposed to be the leader of the what? Leader of the home. They guide. At the end of the day, all these things that we miss for and all these things, it's usually directed by the dad. They're in charge. They can eliminate some of these things. And you think about this song title and how that means. At the end of the day, do you want your children to be just like you? Were you the person that God wanted you to be when you had the opportunity to show them that I was respectful, I did what I was supposed to do, and I led my family like I was supposed to lead them? Because a lot of these, and some of you might be in this position, to lead your child is a serious and important thing, but you got to be the example to do it. If you struggle with this and you're a child of God, maybe you need the prayers of this congregation to help you with this. Helping you get into the regiment of, this is it. We're doing this. We're going to Sunday morning. We're doing what we're supposed to do for God, and we're going to be that example. But I need help of the congregation to pray for me to get me back on track. If you never become a child of God, what better day to do that? To serve your Father in heaven and become a child of His this day. Would you please come forward and stand and sing?